There is a forgotten wisdom hidden in the United States forests, which can completely change the way you live today. But almost no one talks about her. We are trapped in routines, debt, noise, and haste, believing we are alive when we are actually just surviving. Henry David Thoreau has discovered this secret after 2 years alone in Walden. And now, you will also find out. Welcome to the hidden secret that no one tells you. Imagine yourself in 1845 in the United States. The cities were already breathing factories. The noise of iron rails began to cut the silence of the fields, and a new religion seemed to rise, that of progress. But there was a man who, in the midst of this whirlwind, dared to ask, does progress bring us life or move us away from it? Now it's your turn. Click on the link below and download the free ebook I have prepared for you. Not just watch, click. The link is in the description and also in the comment fixed. Tap now and guarantee yours. The forest only paves the way for the first step. This format eliminates ambiguity and gives a clear order. Click. This man was Henry David Thoreau. He looked around and saw his neighbors imprisoned in debt, running after properties, collecting things they would never use. He heard empty conversations about profits and distant wars, and within him, a restlessness grew. There was nothing truly human to live like gears of a machine. Have you ever felt that? Is this feeling that modern routine is not life but a kind of invisible arrest? Thoreau felt, and decided to escape. Not to the other side of the world, but for something much more radical. He walked only a few kilometers to a forest, raised with his own hands a wooden cabin, and promised himself 2 years of solitude. 2 years without newspapers, 2 years without neighbors, 2 years without the constant tinnitus of the hurry. On the edge of a lake named Walden, he did not seek isolation by contempt for the world, but for the sake of life. I wanted to answer a question that many avoid. What is really necessary to live? And here comes the revelation that begins to haunt us. You may also be surrounded by excess, objects you bought and forgot, tasks that fill your time but not your soul, conversations that tell you anything but the truth. Thoreau believed that the forest was not just a physical place, but a mirror. The silence of the trees could return to man what the city stole, clarity. And it was in this silence that he began to discover secrets that would forever change the way of thinking about freedom, wealth, and happiness. But beware, Thoreau's decision was not a naive romantic act. It was a statement of war. War against the illusion that having is more important than being. War against the rush that steals us the present. War against blind obedience to a society that confuses comfort with meaning. And here, at this point, I leave a question that will echo through the next chapters. If you were now taken to Walden's edge, what would be left of you when all the excesses were torn? The lake is in front of you. The silence too. The invitation was made. Would you have the courage to accept? In the summer of 1845, Henry David Thoreau raised a simple cabin on the banks of Walden Lake. Only 4 wooden walls, a rustic fireplace, a makeshift bed, a table, nothing more, nothing less. And this is where the paradox begins. While many saw poverty in that small construction, Thoreau via wealth, not the wealth of gold, but the richness of freedom, because each object less was a broken chain. Have you ever stopped to think about it? How many things in your house are nothing but weighing? How many furniture you barely wear, forgotten clothes, commitments that only take up space? Imagine removing all this. What would be left? Perhaps the essentials, maybe you. Thoreau believed that living in excess was like carrying stones in his pockets during a race. Every step, weight increases, breathing fails, vision, if cloudy. But when we drop the superfluous, we run light, almost floating. Walden's cabin was not just a house. It was a silent manifesto against American logic of the time, a logic that still persists today. Working harder, consuming, accumulating more. He asked, why? To die surrounded by things that do not fit in the coffin? But there is something even deeper. Thoreau didn't just want to simplify life, he wanted to test her. As a scientist before an experiment, he used his own existence as a laboratory, asked, how far can I go without depending on the illusions of society? And here is the point that crosses us like a radius. Perhaps you are also living in an invisible cabin. But unlike Thoreau, this cabin was not chosen. It was imposed, made of debts, rigid hours, social appearances. An elegant prison, but still these prison. The forest offered Thoreau what the city denied it: silence. And in that silence, he heard something scary. Not the sound of the birds, not the rustle of the leaves, but an inner voice that the city was drowned out. Your own voice. And I need to ask you, when was the last time you heard you? Not that voice of fear, not that voice of the expectations of others, but yours, the one you know, effortlessly, what is right for you. In the cabin, every dawn was a fresh start. The sun not only illuminated the forest, it also illuminated the mind of a man willing to undress that was not essential. And now, as long as you imagine this cabin by the lake, the inevitable question arises: is the secret of life just losing, not winning? Thoreau believed yes, but this answer is just the beginning. In the heart of the forest, Thoreau discovered something that the city hid from all: the power of silence. But make no mistake, the silence of nature is not empty. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something bigger. Imagine walking by Walden Lake. The standing waters reflect the sky like a mirror. No word, no human noise, just the farthest corner of a bird, the wind passing through the trees. This is the kind of silence that does not shut up. He shouts. And what does he scream? He screams truths that modern man tries to forget. In the city, every minute is filled by notifications, conversations, horns, obligations. It is impossible to hear your own breath, but in the forest, each step becomes conscious. Each heartbeat is a reminder that you are still alive. Thoreau said that nature is a wiser teacher than any university, because it does not speak through books, but through rhythms. The sunrise teaches constancy, autumn teaches detachment, winter teaches resistance, spring teaches renaissance. Have you ever noticed that human life moves in stations too? Have you realized that there are times of expansion and moments of recollection, and that resisting this is like fighting your own time? In Walden's silence, Thoreau began to feel that the forest was not just out, but inside him. Naked branches reflected their vulnerability. The deep waters reflected his mind. The firm stones reflected their will. But there was a hidden danger. Silence also reveals what you try to hide. Old fears, questions buried, truths that the rush of the city masks. This is why so many escape from silence, because it forces you to face yourself without masks. And here, an uncomfortable revelation. Maybe that's why you avoid turning off your phone, being alone in the room, walking without headphones. Because deep down you know that if you hear, you will come across something that can change everything. Thoreau had the courage. He did not run away from silence. He received him as if he receives a severe but fair master. And in this learning he found that true life does not happen when we fill all the spaces, but when we leave room for the invisible. Then I ask you, what would silence reveal about you today if you had the courage to hear you? While Thoreau lived in his cabin, the world besides the forest was still running. Men straightened to buy land, worked from birth to sunset to pay homes larger than they needed, filled the promissory pockets and the head of worries. For them, that was normal. For Thoreau, it was crazy. He looked at the city and saw something scary. Free people but living like prisoners. Invisible currents, not forged iron but of desire. The desire to have more, to show more, to appear more. And here is the paradox he denounced. American society, which was proud of his freedom, was a slave to his own possessions. Think about it. You can have a stable job, a comfortable car, a home full of objects, and yet be a prisoner, because each achievement is born a new requirement. You do not rest, just change of handcuffs. Thoreau called it life of quiet hopelessness. People who do not scream, do not revolt, do not run away. They just follow the flow, believing they are living when they are actually just surviving. Recognize this pattern? But the most disturbing thing was to realize that this arrest was voluntary. No one forced those men to get into debt. No one forced them to run after status. They chose. They chose comfort instead of freedom. They chose security instead of the truth. And here comes the wound Thoreau exposed. It is not the government that imprisons you. It is not the institutions, nor the bosses. And you. It is your own silent acceptance. He believed the real rebellion was not shouting at the system, but simply refusing to play the game. In Walden, he proved that it was possible to live outside the gear. He planted his food, built his furniture, read by the lake. One man, but freer than everyone. AG. Now look at yourself. How many of your appointments did you really choose? How many did you accept because they said it was the right way? Work, debt, social standards, aren't they just bars of invisible arrest? Thoreau didn't want you to imitate your escape to the forest. He wanted something more radical, that you realize that prison has always been inside you, and that the key too. And here is the question that he would throw straight into your heart. Do you have the courage to use this key? Or do you prefer to decorate your cell so that it looks like a home? In Walden's cabin, time was not a straight line that ran against him. There were no watches on the wall, no appointments on the agenda. The sun and moon were the only markers of passage. For Thoreau, time is no longer tyrant and became an ally. He watched the neighbors of the cities and realized something cruel. Men spending a lifetime trying to raise money to, in the end, buy time. But when they finally got it, they were too old to use it. And here is the wound he exposes to you. How much of your time is yours? Stop a moment. Count the hours of your day. How many of them are delivered to work, displacement, social obligations, consumption? And how many are left to actually live, to create, to contemplate, to be? Thoreau said that the greatest thief is not the one who takes his money, but the one who steals his time. Because money can be recovered, but every lost minute never returns. In the forest, he reversed logic. Instead of selling your hours to buy comfort, he used his simplicity to earn hours. He planted beans, cut wood, walked in silence. Each act was slow but loaded with presence. He not only went through time, he dwelt him. And this is a direct blow to us modern. We are always running, always late, always looking for the next task. But when we got there, we found that there was no there. Just one more race. It's like running on a treadmill. You get tired, but you never get out of place. Thoreau asked, is living slowly wasting time, or is it finally winning it? The truth is that the city sells haste as virtue. Productivity, they say. But productivity for whom? For you, or for a system that consumes your hours as fuel? In Walden, Thoreau has proved something simple and radical. When you reduce what you need, you increase what you have the most precious, time. Now think, what if your greatest wealth wasn't the money that accumulates, but the hours you can really live? What would you do differently if it was every minute like gold? This is the question that Thoreau would echo like a silent thunder. Are you living your time or just renting it to others? While men in the cities competed for lands, titles, and coins, Thoreau laughed alone by the lake. Not because it despised money, but because it had discovered a kind of wealth that no one could steal. He wrote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can give up." Stop and let this phrase cross you. Wealth is not to add. It is subtracting. It is not filling the pockets. It is emptying the heart. Imagine a neighbor of Thoreau, indebted to the neck, running every day to support a farm that required more of it than returned. Now imagine Thoreau, sitting in a chair made with his own hands, watching the sunset over the lake. Who was richer? In the cabin, he found that nature offers abundance to those who know how to see. The wood warmed, the earth fed, the silence nourished. There was no lack, just simplicity. And here is the uncomfortable revelation. You may confuse comfort with wealth. Perhaps your state, of the art television, your new car, your expensive phone, are just attempts to anastrate a void. But the void is not filled with things. It expands in them. Thoreau saw nature as a secret safe. In it were stored invisible treasures. The freedom to wake up without haste, the beauty of listening to a bird, the peace of looking at a lake and recognizing in him treasures that cannot be bought or sold. And this is the wound he plays. How much do you have of invisible wealth? I do not speak of the bank balance, but the balance of the soul. How much silence do you accumulate? How much free time? How many mornings can you just be? In the logic of the market, Thoreau was poor, but in the logic of life, he was a spiritual millionaire. His cabin was a palace, its lake, an empire. And here is the question he would cast to you, looking into your eyes. Do you prefer to live as a rich slave or as a simple king? For 19th century Americans, freedom was a scream against distant kings, a wars raised, a document signed by politicians. But Thoreau was suspicious of all this. He believed that true freedom could not be written on paper or granted by governments. Freedom was a state of being. In the cabin, he experienced something that few know. Wake up every day without anyone deciding his routine. There was no boss, no clock, no debt, no boss. Only he, the sun, the earth, and the time. And here is revelation. You can live in a democratic nation and yet be a slave. Slave of expectations, fashion, comparisons, desires planted in you. Slave of the eyes of others. Thoreau asked, What's the point of fighting external tyrants if you keep obeying the internal tyrants? In the forest, he realized that true prison was the domesticated mind, people who obey without thinking, who work without question, who live as everyone lives without wondering why. And perhaps this is the most painful part. Freedom requires courage. Courage to disappoint others, courage to walk against the chain, courage to lose status and come to life. Thoreau knew this price was high, but he also knew that inner slavery cost much more, because living stuck to what others expect from you is to die slowly, every day. He was looking at Lake Walden and saw a mirror of his free soul. The waters do not ask for permission to reflect the sky. The trees do not ask for permission to grow. The wind does not ask if it can blow. Nature is free because it does not negotiate with anyone its essence. And here is the inevitable question. When did you start negotiating yours? How many times did I say yes when I wanted to say no? How many times did you follow a path that was not yours, just because it seemed safer? How many times has you sacrificed your truth in exchange for acceptance? Thoreau believed that the forest was not an escape but training. Training to be free in the only place where freedom really matters, inside you. And now I ask you, are you ready for this silent war against the invisible tyrants that govern your life? Thoreau was not just the forest to escape society. He went to find something bigger, what does not fit in books, nor in churches, nor in speeches. He went to seek the invisible presence that inhabits the silence. As he walked among centuries, old trees, he felt that each root was a silent prayer. The wind that crossed the branches seemed an old voice, repeating forgotten secrets. The lake reflected the sky like a liquid temple. Walden was his cathedral. But Thoreau did not speak of God in the traditional molds. He rejected religion that preached blind obedience, mechanical rituals, distant promises. For him, spirituality was not in repeating words, but in listening to what is alive. And here is the shock. Perhaps true spiritual experience is not looking for the divine out, but inside. Not to expect miracles, but to realize that the simple act of breathing is already a miracle. In the cabin, he found that nature is radically sincere. It does not pretend to be what it is not. A tree does not apologize for being a tree. A stone does not try to be a flower. Each being fulfills its effortless essence, and it is in this silent fulfillment that something sacred is revealed. And you? How many times have you cheated on trying to be what they expected? How many times have you hid behind masks to be accepted? Thoreau believed that spirituality is just the opposite. It is to take the masks, not to put them. It is being as true as a tree, as firm as a mountain, as fluid as water. And here comes a powerful paradox. The more alone Thoreau was, the more connected he felt, not with people, but with everything. He realized that each sheet, each star, each insect was part of a living network, and he too. Solitude was just appearance. The truth was unity. Perhaps this is Walden's greatest spiritual revelation. You are never really alone. The invisible accompanies you. Life pulsates into everything, including you. And now I leave you with the question that echoes as prayer. When was the last time you felt part of the whole without needing proof, just because you breathed along with the universe? In Walden's solitude, Thoreau not only lived, he rehearsed death. Not in the dark sense, but in the most radical sense. He learned to imagine himself with nothing, without possessions, without titles, without people around. And in this void, he found that almost everything we think is essential disappears. What remains then? He wrote, "Most men live lives with quiet hopelessness, and perhaps the root of this hopelessness is precisely to live as if we were never dying. We work without stopping. We accumulate things, pretend eternity, but death is always there, remembering. Time is short." In Walden, each season was a reminder. The leaves that fell in the fall spoke about the end. Winter ice resembled the rigidity of the final silence. But spring, with its reborn flowers, taught that even death is part of a cycle. And here is the revelation that crosses you as a blade. It is not death we should fear, but a life does not live Ida. How many times do you advance the essentials waiting for a tomorrow that may never arrive? How many dreams do you bury alive just to keep the routine working? How many times do you breathe without really being present? Thoreau turned his life into the forest, into a rehearsal, as if to say, if I was only 2 years to live, what would you do? And the answer was clear. It would live simple, present, true. This is the point that he wanted to cast against us as a lightning. Perhaps death is just the last invitation to simplicity. After all, in the end, everything will be taken from us except what we really were. Now look at you. If today were your last day, what would be left of your life? A collection of objects? A list of tasks? Or moments of presence that shine like stars in the dark? Thoreau believed that living in Walden was, in a way, to die for illusions. And in this dying, born to the truth. And here I leave the question that won't let it out. Are you ready to die for illusions before real death comes? After 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, Thoreau left his cabin by the lake. Many asked, why? If Walden was so perfect, why not stay forever? His answer was as simple as disturbing, because there were still other lives to live. And here is the key that few realize. Thoreau did not go to the forest to escape society, but to learn to live in another way. Walden was an existential laboratory, an essay of freedom, simplicity, and truth. After experiencing this, he could return to the world without being swallowed by him. Think about it. How many times do you believe you need to run away, moving town, work, relationship, to find yourself? But Thoreau shows us that the true escape is not geographical, it is inner. You can be in the city and still live like Walden. Learn how to carry the cabin inside you. Thoreau's return was not a defeat. It was a silent triumph. He came back knowing something that others ignored, that life needs not to be a slave to haste, neither excess nor illusions. He proved that. He lived it. But here comes the dilemma. How to live simple in a world that requires complexity. How to keep silent in the midst of the noise. How to be free in the midst of gears. Thoreau responded with a kind of serene irony. Simplify, simplify. Cut the superfluous. Choose less. Live more. And you? What could you simplify today? What an object, what a habit, what commitment could abandon without losing anything, or rather earning everything? Thoreau's return reminds us that the forest is not just a physical place. It is an attitude towards life. You can build your cabin in the middle of the city if you have the courage to say no to what doesn't matter. And perhaps this is Walden's greatest legacy. It is not about isolating forever, but of returning differently. Carry a silence that no one can steal on your chest. Carry a clarity that the noise cannot erase. And here is the question that prepares us for the end. When you come back from your own forest, whatever it is, what will bring back you? 2 years passed. The man who entered the forest was not the same one who left her. What Thoreau discovered by the Walden Lake was not a secret hidden in the trees, but something that was always inside it, and inside you too. The secret is simple, almost obvious, but so forgotten that it sounds like revelation. To live is to choose the essentials, not the essential that others define, but yours. Not what shines in the windows, but what lights inside you. Not what fills the eyes of others, but what fills your soul. Thoreau found that life is not on the accumulation, but in detachment. Not in a hurry, but in the presence. Not in blind obedience, but in inner freedom. And do you feel it now? Does the restlessness that perhaps is waste of the gift, exchanging minutes of life for illusions that do not last? This is the same restlessness that led Thoreau to the forest. The difference is that he did not silence her. He followed her. The secret of life for him was not a dogma, not a magic formula. It was an invitation to live in such a way that when death comes, you don't find out that you've never lived. And this is the deep-cut wound. How many are breathing but not living? How many walk but don't choose? How many accumulate but never own themselves? Thoreau left Walden, but Walden didn't leave him. And now, this same flame comes to you, as if it crosses centuries and oceans, asking for a decision. You can continue to decorate your cell, calling progress what is prison, or you can open the door, walk to the lake, and finally choose life. The choice is yours. Always has been. Now that you know the secret that Thoreau discovered in the forest, imagine what would happen if another genius mind had gone even further, questioning not only simple life, but meaning itself of existence. This is the theme of the next video, and I guarantee it will move even more with you. Click here on the screen and continue with me on this journey. Don't go out now. The forest only opened the first door. The next revelation can change everything you believe about freedom.